Okay, I talk a lot about podcasts, so I thought I would talk about some of my favorite writing podcasts. Now, I don't know about you, but I really love podcasts. So I listen to a lot of different podcasts. Not all of them are related to writing, but most of them are. So I made a little list of some of my favorite writing podcasts. And this is not like the total list of all the podcasts I listen to that are related to writing. There are more, but I would say these are the ones that I probably listen to the most. So I thought, hey, I'll share these. Now, these are in no particular order except for the last two, which are my favorite. So I'm going to leave those for the very end of the video. So stay tuned for those. So the first one I'm going to talk about is Draft Digital's podcast. They call it the Self-Publishing Insiders with Draft Digital. And these are just really interesting podcasts. I mean, they'll give you updates about what's going on with Draft Digital and just kinds of things. So when I was starting my self-publishing journey, I wanted to learn as much as I could about how to go about it, and I had an idea that I wanted to go with Draft Digital, so that's pretty much how I discovered their podcast. Now, I think they might do these podcasts like on their website too, but I don't always have time to actually sit in front of a computer and watch a video. I know I'm doing YouTube videos. I don't always have time to watch videos, or usually I'm watching other videos. So I just like to get the content through the podcast because then I can listen to it in the car, or wherever. And so I really recommend that one if you do want to learn more about Draft Digital and kind of what's going on with them and about like their features. And a lot of times they do Q&A, which is so helpful because, when you're trying to figure out how to self-publish, you have so many questions. That is definitely a really good way to learn how to self-publish. So yeah, definitely check out Draft Digital's Self-Publishing Insiders podcast. All right, so the next one on my list is Kobo. If you don't know what Kobo is really popular in Canada, but it is another self-publishing platform where you can go and you can publish your books on Kobo. And so, of course, they have a podcast too. Now, their podcasts, I hate to say this, I cannot remember who the hosts are, but it's Kobo Writing Life Podcasts. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a great podcast. They cover like a lot of different topics, like just related to writing. And they interview a lot of authors, and so it's just really helpful. And I don't listen to every single episode of it, but if there is an episode that looks interesting, I do check it out. So yeah, that's a really good one. So the third one on my list is Writers Inc., the Writers Inc. podcast. And I discovered this podcast, I don't remember when I discovered it, but there used to be a podcast called the Career Author Podcast, and it was hosted by Jay Thorne and Zach Bohannon, and they had this podcast, and I enjoyed listening to that podcast, and then they ended that podcast, and then they went to this other podcast, or I don't know how long the Writers Inc. podcast has been going on, but now it's Jay Thorne and Zach, and then they're with this other guy, JD Barker, so they all do this podcast together. And I really like this podcast too. It's another one of those, I don't listen to every single episode, but if the episode looks interesting, I do check it out. And I like this one because they do have a lot of good information about what's going on with publishing, indie and traditional. And like there's a lot of good information about writing resources and things like that, so I do recommend that one. But I did discover this one when the Career Author ended and they said, come, listen to Writers Inc. So I started listening to Writers Inc. and I do enjoy it. All right, this next one on my list, Author News Weekly. This is a really entertaining one, and I think it's kind of newish. They only have 44 episodes, but I think I've been listening to this one since the beginning. I just stumbled upon it. I think I just did a search and it just came up, or maybe it was recommended to me. I don't really remember even how I found it, but I started listening to this one, and it's good. It's like a group of different authors, and they basically just kind of talk about what's going on, in the news, like, publishing news and other kind of like interesting things that are related to books they talk about. So it's like a group of several of them. So let's see, R.A. McGee, Philippa Werner, Jim Heskett, and Nick Thacker. And I just really enjoyed their conversations together. So it's a good podcast. And usually the episodes are like pretty short, like, I don't know, like maybe like 20, 30 minutes or something like that. So that's a really good one. All right, then another one of my podcasts that I listen to quite often. Let's see. So it's this novel marketing podcast by Thomas Umstad Jr. And let me tell y'all, if you want to learn how to market your book, he does have some good advice. He's got some good tips on things you can do to get the word out about your book. And he is really like into WordPress. And he just loves some WordPress. And I'm a Wix girl myself. So the one experience I had with making a WordPress website, well, I have done like blogs on the site before. But I remember I was helping my brother-in-law with his website. And he had a WordPress website and he needed me to do he needed some kind of help with it. I don't remember, it was so long ago, but he needed some kind of help with the website. And I tried to help him with it and I just could not figure WordPress out, even though I am pretty good at some of that kind of stuff, but I could not figure it out. So I just really don't like WordPress for a website. And he really raves about it. But this isn't really about websites. So he does talk about other things that you can do so he does talk about your website. He talks about, other things you can do, like your mailing lists, ads, just all different kinds of things. So I think he really does have some good, useful information. So, I don't I listen to a lot of different episodes. I don't listen to every episode. Really, a lot of these, I just look and I see, oh, that looks like a good topic. Let me listen to that one. So definitely check that out. And I'm going to say this, it doesn't even matter if you are doing traditional or indie. It doesn't matter. You are going to have to do marketing for your book. I'm sorry to tell all the people who want to trad pub, but you are going to have to market your book because the publishers are really not going to market your book for you. They might do a little marketing, but they are not going to do the bulk of it. They are going to expect you to do some of the marketing. And I really think that learning how to market your book is so important because it doesn't matter if you're going, indie publishing or if you're doing the traditional publishing, it doesn't matter. You are going to have to learn how to market your book. Now, definitely with indie, you definitely have to market your book. That's how you make money. But even with traditional publishing, you are going to have to do some of the marketing. That's how it's changed now. I do think that a lot of people, including myself, used to think, well, yeah, they'll just do all the marketing for you. You don't have to do anything. You just have to write the book and hand it over. That is not the case anymore because I think because of social media and things like that, traditional publishers will expect you to do some of the marketing. And unless you are like a really popular author like Stephen King or something like that, if you're a really popular author and you have proven that you have made them a lot of money, then yeah, they're going to definitely help you out with marketing because they want to make more money. But I just want to, tell you that because I see so many authors, especially like on Twitter, they say they want to publish traditionally. They don't want to self-publish because they don't want to deal with the marketing. But I'm sorry to say that it doesn't matter. You're going to have to deal with marketing either way if you want to sell your book. So anyway, check out that podcast for tips. Okay, the next podcast on my list is the Indy Author Podcast. That is hosted by Maddie Dalrymple. Maddie Dalrymple. Oh my gosh, why can't I say her name? Maddie. Anyway, hosted by Maddie. And she has a really interesting podcast. And she she likes to do like interviews with different people. And so this is just another one of those, you can just kind of scroll through and, well, that seems like an interesting one and check it out. But I do enjoy her podcast. She has, a lot of good information in that one. So she says okay, I'm having a hard time thinking about how to describe this podcast, But she just says, where we explore the writing craft, the publishing voyage, and how we can navigate our way to the readers who will love our work. So she describes her podcast best, better than I could. So yeah, I would definitely give that one a listen. It's really good. Okay, my two favorite podcasts, the ones that I listen to all the time, some of my favorite podcasts of all time. So if you want to really learn about self-publishing, and if you just have a lot of questions about the whole author journey, the whole indie author journey, I recommend you check out Joanna Penn's podcast. It is called the Creative Penn Podcast. That's Penn with a double N. And Joanna Penn is just so awesome. I just love her so much. And she has such a lovely accent. So she's very enjoyable to listen to. So she's in the UK, and I don't really know where she's from. Like, I don't know if she's from the UK, or she talks about New Zealand sometimes and Australia. So I don't really know exactly where she's from, but wherever she's from, she has a very lovely accent. So Joanna Penn has been publishing for like over a decade now. She got her start, I think, in about, 2007 or 2008, like somewhere in that time frame, she got her start. She's been running this podcast for a long time. I think she has something like 500 or 600 episodes, so she's been doing it for a long while. And this is what I really love about Joanna Penn. You can tell that she really wants to use her podcast to help other authors, right? And she's just got such good and useful information in there. So the way her podcast is structured is that the first part of it, she will give you publishing news. So she'll give you updates on any publishing news that she has come across. She'll also give her personal updates and things like that. And then she has an interview portion where she will interview someone. So usually I tune in for that first part because I want to know what publishing news is. And then sometimes I'll listen to the interview if it seems like an interesting topic to me. And she does 2 podcasts a week. So Monday is her regular podcast. And then sometimes she'll do a bonus episode on Friday, which can be an interview, or it can be solo cast or something like that. And she's also really big into the future of publishing, and especially with audio. And so with audiobooks, and she's really interested in AI narration and things like that. So we have things we can look forward to, I guess. So I don't know, just check her podcast out if you want some more information, but I really recommend her. She was one of the first podcasts that I started listening to when I was really starting to think about self-publishing. And so she was one of the reasons I think that convinced me, hey, I could totally go for this. I could do this, because she is really successful. She's making 6 figures. So whatever she's doing pretty good for herself. Now, as far as Joanna Penn's books, she is a thriller author, which I've never read any of her thriller books, but she also writes nonfiction too. And the nonfiction she writes is for authors. So I have checked out a few of her books. I've listened to the audiobook because it's just so lovely to hear her voice. And she really has some good information. So I do recommend her if you want to learn more about being an indie author and publishing and things like that. It's a very, very good podcast. Okay, my absolute favorite podcast, my favorite podcast, the one I probably listen to almost every episode, and I've already gone through the backlist too. 6 Figure Authors. I love this podcast so much. It's inspiring, really, because the title, 6 Figure Authors, these authors are making 6 figures. They're making 6 figures. They are making money. And wow, wouldn't that be nice, to make 6 figures for your books? Wouldn't that be awesome? So the podcast is these 3 authors. It's Lindsay and Joe and Andrea, and they get together every week, and they just they kind of just chat about what's going on, self-publishing, and how, you can be successful as an indie author. And I gotta tell you, I never heard of these 3 authors before. I never heard of them. Never heard of them. This is the kind of success that I want. Like, I want to be making a lot of money from my books, but I don't want to be like someone super famous. Like, I don't want to be a Nora Roberts. I don't want to be a Stephen King or, name any popular author, I don't want to be someone super famous, but I want to be successful enough that I do make a lot of money. And these authors are like, they're it. I've never heard of them before. Now, maybe I never heard of them before because it sounds like they write like a lot of fantasy and sci-fi. And I don't really read those genres. So maybe that's why I just have never heard of them before. But they're doing really good. They're doing really, really good. So they talk about, just like I say, like a variety of topics about writing. They talk about like how to sell your book. They talk about pen names. They talk about advertising. They do spend a lot of time talking about advertising. And so I will say, out of all the episodes, those are the ones I probably don't listen to as much because I'm just not really ready to deal with advertising yet. I feel like once I have a good backlist, then it'll be a good time to, focus on advertising and things like that. But yeah, they talk about like so many different kinds of topics. And then they also do a lot of Q&A. So a lot of people will have questions and, they'll answer them and, just anything just indie publish related. And they all have been doing this for a long time. So they've been like publishing for like a decade. And so I've only been publishing for, a year. I've got 1 book out there, but I am planning on, for the long haul. So I'll see like in 10 years, like where I'm at and see if I'm a 6-figure author. I don't know. We'll see. That would be a lot of fun. It'd be a lot of fun to make money, but I'm not like writing books to make money. I'm not doing that. I'm writing books because I love to write and I want to share my books and I do want to make some money, sure, but, even if I didn't make a lot of money, like, even if I knew that I wasn't going to make a lot of money from my books, I think I would still want to write, because, you just have to. If you're a writer, you just have to write. You just have to. Well, that is it for my podcast list, my favorite writing podcast. And like I say, that is not all the podcasts I listen to. There are a few more random writing podcasts that I will listen to from time to time. A lot of times what I do is if I'm thinking about a certain topic, like say I'm thinking about ISBNs, I type in ISBN into the podcast and I see what comes up, or like I'm thinking about, pen names, or if I'm thinking about, advertising or whatever I'm thinking about, like KDP, I will, search it into the search box and try to find a writing podcast related to that. And that's how I find them. So I'm still always looking for more writing podcasts. So if you have a podcast that you really enjoy that I haven't talked about, leave me a comment. Let me know what that is, and I'll be sure to check it out sometime. And if you haven't heard of any of these podcasts that I mentioned, definitely check them out. They are worth a listen. I love podcasts. I'm so obsessed with podcasts. They're just so easy to listen to. You listen to them in the car, listen to them when you're exercising. I sometimes like listen to them when I'm just doing boring stuff like folding the towels or unloading the dishwasher. I'll just turn on a podcast and listen to it. So check it out. And it's so easy because they're all on your phone. You can just listen to them on your phone. And so it's definitely worth a listen. And especially if you're trying to learn more about indie publishing, and if you want to self-publish, you don't know how to go about it, there's some great information in these podcasts. All right, so that is going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. It helps my channel. See y'all next time. Bye.